All I know is I'm sure what we're trying to do was to gather our best stuff, or a variety of stuff, and get it across to a big audience. I mean, that's the only way I can see it. And television, obviously, live television is a great way to do it, as opposed to a bunch of videos or a bunch of something that you've already done. Again, it's the audience thing, I think, that makes something happen. Right from the early days when we were required to go in and mime, or lip sync as they call it these days, we didn't like it. You go to Top of the Pops and they wouldn't let you play your instruments because they didn't know how to record it. They just couldn't do it. And silly things like you'd have to reproduce the backing track again because the musicians union won't let you use the original, and you've got to then, that's if you're doing a live, like that's when you're singing live but you're not playing live. That's your ready steady goes, as opposed to Top of the Pops where everything is just the record and you're miming to it. And after time you don't want to, you just go, yeah, sure. But you do, because that's the only way you get on the television to promote your song. So you become part of that little scam, really. But, when you're doing a live thing with an audience, again, it's almost like doing a sitcom, where you're doing the jokes and the audience either like it or they don't. It's not canned laughter here. This is like, if they don't like it, you ain't got a show, right? So there's that element of, not nervousness, but, you've got to be good. Performance, it has to be good. I think all the tricks of the trade come out of situations like that, because we were doing a lot of that, stuff in the old days, the old northern clubs and the that kind of, if they don't like it, they're going to throw bottles at you, that kind of attitude. So, yeah, I like doing that kind of special. As I say, if something is put together in the studio and it's a bit here and a bit there and a bit there, it's just an editing job, and that's down to a good editor. But a live thing, you've got the whole thing of it being, a start, a middle and an end, and you've got to kind of pace it and do it yourself, Although it's worked out, it wouldn't probably, doing it in bits and then joining it all together, that doesn't work. I think it has to be the whole thing, to get the flow of it. I did no, because we went in there specifically not to be the Beatles or the Moody Blues. You see, it's like when I left my own band in Birmingham, I didn't go up there and throw all those songs at the Moody Blues and say I want to do these songs I used to do, when I was at school. And it's the same with Paul. He didn't want to do the Beatles songs. I sometimes, once in a while, would say, well, I like that song in my life. He'd go, yeah, well, yeah, thanks. But, you could tell he didn't really want to do Beatles songs. So if we're going to do them, we do them acoustically. So, again, we were specifically trying to be something different. That's it. So whether the press expected it to be, as good as it, well, that's silly anyway. I mean, the Beatles are the Beatles. Wings was another thing. Paul was in it. I was in it. I was from the Moody Blues. Again, we're going forward. We're not going backwards. We don't want to be criticised for being, trying to produce the past. So therefore, we didn't have that problem. Our mentality was no problem, And anybody who did have it, that's their problem, right? But I think you'd only get that once in a while cropping up if somebody was comparing it to the Beatles, like the press, And that's the mistake. You can't compare something that is not the, it's not that. It's just they're comparing him. How is he performing now as opposed to when he did that? Or is his song as good as that song? So we didn't feel that pressure at all. It's just, and I knew all the Beatles too. I mean, they were friends of mine personally. So I didn't feel that, that we were trying to compete in any way, shape or form. And cause their mentality isn't like that either, They're the same as me in the sense that they take other people's music as well and make it their own, which they did with a lot of Chuck Berry stuff, as you know, and the first album was like that. you know, they're not being compared to the original. It's the Beatles doing somebody's song, and you know, it's whatever your identity is. It's important, and we had an identity as Wings, you see. So, and that's why I think it was successful. We weren't trying to be anything else apart from what we had in us that came out, and we got a lot of success too. You know, so once you do that. Once you've had all that feedback from the audience, your confidence is there. You don't have to worry. All you got to do is just keep going, you know, keep the pace up.